good to go. Okay, so when you come to practice, you're going to dress safely, and there's a pretty good chance that if you wear the wrong thing, you can get injured. And people have been injured by horses in every way, every single way possible. There's not a way that you can be injured that someone hasn't been injured by a horse. And we are looking at the most dangerous mammal in the developed world, as opposed to sharks. They kill a lot more people than sharks. I think sheep kill more people than sharks.
Yeah.
Ballpoint pens kill more people than sharks every year, but still you don't want to go swimming. But the horse, horse riding is the most dangerous, statistically the most dangerous sport you can partake in, and most people get killed. A lot of people that get killed by horses get killed on the ground as well. So the stuff that we're doing is still not without danger. And so we have to be mindful all the time that we're dealing with a large, unpredictable, hurdle mammal with very small brain and no sort of inbuilt sense that it wants to be your friend. So we're going to talk a lot more about that. And the thing is, you have a large dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, so that you can kind of go through all this stuff in your head and make sure that you stay safe. But the horse's prefrontal cortex is very undeveloped, and the tissue is very granular, not very dense. So he doesn't really have any of those sorts of things that we associate with, reasoning and logic and all that kind of stuff, social laws and things like that. So you're going to have to do the thinking for the horse at all times. And that's okay, because you've got the neural architecture to do that. So number one, we've got to come safely dressed. So if your footwear is enclosed, reasonably robust, sort of fitted, you are okay. If it's possible to not come in sand shoes, if you've got alternative in the future, but that's just a matter of safety. It's just going to give you leather between you and the horse. It's just going to provide you with a little bit more safety, but your gumboots are extremely safe. So that's very good. We want to have no piercings, visible piercings that are large. So anyone got large dangly earrings on? A little bit, yeah. You don't have to take, let's take them on. So like really tiny little sleepers like this, or a stud like that, that's okay. But big dangling ones, or big dangling necklaces, bracelets are particularly good for catching on horses' things, on the bridles or whatever, and so we don't want that. Back in the day, many years ago, when I used to teach at Pony Club, we used to tape piercings with Fix-A-Mole or some surgical tape or whatever, and kids really quickly learned not to wear their big eyebrow piercings at Pony Club because it was going to get taped. I understand it's about taking it off. So, plus you've got then to wear a band-aid on your face the whole day. So I'm happy to do that for you guys, but it's probably better if you come without piercings, so that gets better than the band-aid on your face. You can wear gloves if you are particularly sensitive in the hand area. You should have your hair tied back. We got all hair tied back. Look at us go. We're like 100%. Yeah, so hair tied back. Just things like the cord on your hat, I would probably put it up inside the hat, just so that it's not dangling. And you just want to stay focused, basically, on the job. And I know it's kind of cool because you get to see mates in here, and then there's horses, and it's fun. But just try and stay a little bit on the job all the time when you're around the horses, because they have the fastest reactions, and hopefully we won't see that. And I have to say, Dave and I haven't lost a student yet. And that's 11 years, so I think, yay for us, Dave. Thanks, guys, thanks. So Dave and I haven't lost a student yet. We've had one bitten.
Yep. Their fault.
Totally, of course. What else have we? We haven't had any.
Allergic reaction.
Oh, we've had an allergy.
Yeah.
That's also then not our fault.
That's about it.
That's about it. Some hurt feelings.
But what about permanent disabilities thereafter?
Yeah, possibly, but I don't know, because once you're done out of this unit, you're out of my life. So we might have had some hurt feelings though.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. But so just staying focused on the job at hand. If you have to wear a hat, because your mums and dads going to be happy that I've suggested that, because sun safety and sunblock, and no big fancy jewellery. Long pants is ideal. Boots, gloves gloves if you want them. I think that's it, Dave.
We do have some helmets if you really need to wear them, or if you've got your own and you want to bring it.
And you want to bring a helmet for handling classes. If you've had a head injury, that's probably not a bad idea. But no motorcycle helmets, that's just going a bit far. But I think that's about it, really, for dressing wise. Okay, so can I, do this again, just so that I know. Hands up if you own a horse or have owned a horse in the past and are riding, okay. And hands up if you have no idea what end is what on a horse, like which end kicks and which end bites. That's about some extent of your knowledge. Oh, we've got no one. Fantastic. Oh, that's exciting. All right. Okay, so what we'll try and do in the cracks is split you all up such that we have groups have always got someone that's very experienced. So if you know in your heart that you are really experienced and you've been handling horses all your life, and please put your hand up when we say that, rather than think, oh, my best mate's also really good at handling horses, so I don't want to say that I'm good because then we're going to stay together. Because all those people that have never handled a horse and don't know one end from the other are going to need your experience. So if we could just be, mindful that we're looking after everybody else by splitting up our experience that way. So let us come a little closer. We're going to have a watch of these horses for a minute. Is that okay, Dave?
Yeah, sure.
You can move your filming camera device. You can have a drone for the next one.
That might freak the horses out a bit.
Okay, so we're having a look here at the horses. And what we're going to try and identify today is a little bit of body language of the horse, so that when you go in to catch them, and one walks towards you with its ears back, you know that's a signal that you're going to die and that you actually are going to get out of there. And that's why llamas are very off-putting, because the llama will put its ears back, but apparently that doesn't mean that it's angry. It just means that it's a llama. And they have really weird feet too. So that's why we don't do the cracks on llamas. And that's so this horse is relaxed. What we're looking for, and you'll see that she's resting one hind leg, that's actually quite normal in their relaxed situation like this. But if you were handling her and you were getting towards her back leg and she was holding it up like that, that would probably mean that she wasn't relaxed and that she was going to kick you and that you were going to die. So you would just maybe step her backwards to just get that foot on the ground. Okay, we're going to do some handling of the horse's legs and stuff today in this unit, so you get to do it. I just said before, I once had a student try and pick the horse's leg up by pulling it out to the side. They don't bend that way, so it'll bend up like this. So not like this, their arms don't work like ours. So yeah, I'll just put that out there right now, in case there's quite a few thinking, well, this is going to work. So we're looking at the horse's body language. So should I turn the other way so you can see?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Better? Is that better sound? Okay. So come around this way so I can stand. So first things first, horses are extremely tactile, and you can see how when they tuck in the yards like that, they're often just touching each other. They're a little bit, they're almost like puppies in that way. So there is a little place on the horse's body, and it's here. It's about here, where if we scratch it and her heart or stroke it, when her heart rate is elevated, it will actually lower her blood pressure. And that is because social bonds are so incredibly important to the horse, because in the wild, a lone horse is a dead horse. Social bonds are so incredibly important to a horse that they've got this little spot here on their bodies, because that's the only bit that they can't reach on themselves. So it takes the other horse to touch it. So it's very reinforcing for the horse. So when we interact with the horse like this, that's how you're going to say, good girl, that's how you're going to use the reward. And you can stroke her, or you can stroke her on the neck, but we don't pat, because horses don't like being patted. That's a human thing. That's our decision to pat. I see she's bringing her little spot up closer. So you can have a little look at her face, and that tells you that she's enjoying it. See how her top lips, I think it is, getting longer. So when you found this spot on them, you'll know that's actually quite reinforcing for them. So they will actually do things in order to get that reward of the scratch. So we're looking at a horse horse there that is calm and happy. That's the body language of a calm and happy horse. So, whereas if we look over here, the one, if we can see over here, there's one with a yellow tag on her, like on her neck, and she's got her ears back, and that's usually a signal that she's not a very happy. See, now she's looking at the other horses. So that's her body language saying she's just not, that's not happy jam. And if she was to then lift a leg, that would be definitely a threat posture. Okay, whereas this little girl, she's quite calm about the whole thing and everything. So the one over here with the white stripe on her face and the yellow tag, she's got her ears a little bit back, but that's not her saying she's unhappy, that's her actually asleep. So pinned back flat is, I'm unhappy, get away, I'm going to kill you. And that like that, with the ears a little bit back, that is just calm, I'm sleeping in the sun because I'm a horse and they do sleep standing up. So they've got a unique, and we'll see that in our, oh no, that's next semester, isn't it? The anatomy, the distal limb dissection. So if you go and do the next unit on from this, which you definitely should, you get to do a distal limb dissection and we will see the stay mechanism in the hind leg, which is very, very cool and allows them to sleep standing up. So there we go, angry face. Yep, so that's challenging body language. Get away. So if you're going to catch one and it does that to you, that means you're going to die. So get out, okay? So then she comes back for a scratch. Oh, it's very clever. Got rid of that other horse that's not going to catch your scratches, was it? Okay, so when you go in to catch your horse, you're really not at risk with your horse, you're at risk from the other horses. So when you go in to catch the horses, you're going to be mindful that you can't go too close behind a horse that doesn't know you're there, or so, sorry, I'll backtrack a bit. The horse has different vision to ours. So if you think about it, come on, scratch the outside. Have a look where her eyes are located and turn to the person next to you and see if their eyes are located in the same place. No, they're not, because her eyes are on the side of her head. If the person next to you has eyes on the side of their head, we're in trouble. But that's really cool, see me afterwards. So she has eyes on the side of her head, and that is because in her evolution, she has developed the ability to maintain vigilance all the time. Okay, and one of the things that it suddenly struck me not that long ago, given that, and it's kind of amazing given that I've been around horses all my life, is that the horse developed this long head, so the long face, because it allows him to stay vigilant with his, so it allows his eyes to see above the grass. So that's why the horse has this really long head, not like a sheep with a little short head. Because the horse's real trick is running away. That's his defence mechanism. And he will stand and fight if he has to, but he'd much rather run away from danger. So the horse is basically just a running machine with amazing senses. And if you get in the way of that, he's not going to stop to apologise. He'll just run over the top. So most people that get hurt when the horse is having a flight response moment. And the flight response is that instinct in the horse that tells him to run away from danger. And if you want to name it correctly, and you will by the end of the semester in your exam, it's the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland axis in the brain. And so that's what we call the flight response. And a lot of people name it as the flight or fight, but I actually just think with horses the fight that they have is a function of the flight. So they are so dominant, flight dominant. So remembering, we're getting lined up for the next one. Okay. She's got me quite well trained. So basically you're looking at one of the fastest long distance running machines on the planet. And the cheetah can go at 75 kilometres an hour, but only over a very short distance, whereas the horse can gallop really efficiently at about 60 kilometres an hour for a long distance, 5 maybe kilometres. And every animal on the planet looks like it's standing still when you compare it to the peregrine falcon, which can go at 390 kilometres an hour when it's swooping down to catch something. but they're probably like a bird, but they're like a horse in bird form, I think, because they're just super fast. And that's sort of it's their fatal flaw as well as their gift, really. Oh, okay, we're going to get some others. So this is great because she's showing us angry body language. So you don't want to see that when we're in there catching them. Now, the horse has got, so you are going to remind me to talk about pain face, because I'm going to forget. So I'm going to talk about vision for a minute. So the horse is really different. Oh, that's where I was about 5 minutes ago. That the horse has different vision to ours because she has these side-located eyes high up in her head. And we've got to remember what they evolved for. They evolved to maintain vigilance all the time. So their vision is completely different. She has almost 270 degrees of vision when she's grazing. So she's got her head down, she can see all the way around her, but 2 places. A metre in front of her and a metre behind her. Okay, and those are her blind spots. And when you're handling the horse, it's really important that you never come up behind the horse out of the blind spot. Okay, because the horse is evolved to be particularly frightened of things it cannot see, like things that suddenly appear out of the blind spot. So when you're handling the horse, if you have to come, towards the head from behind, you're actually going to come always at an oblique angle or heading straight towards the shoulder and from there. But you're so much better off not heading directly towards it or directly from behind. Okay, so never approach a horse that way. If you're going to approach a horse, always approach it at an oblique angle. And when you do approach them, it's always nice, and I think, they're not companion animals, but neither are they livestock. But it is always nice, even with these horses that are obviously here for this reason, to just perhaps give them a little scratch or a cuddle first. They are all quite tactile, even if they don't immediately show the response like she did, but they do enjoy it. So when you're going to catch them, just give them a little stroke, and it's not like you're introducing yourself or anything because they don't know that, but it's probably just a good habit to get into. So vision, they do have dichromatic vision, so that means that they only have 2 different kinds of light sensitive cells in their eyes. We have trichromatic vision, so that means we have 3, obviously, and then bees and insects and some birds have tetrachromatic vision, so that means they have 4. So if you go home tonight and you Google bee vision images, and it'll show you pictures of what bees see when they approach a flower, and bees can actually see more colours when they're heading towards flowers than we can. So it makes it really impressive. So the horse is very similar vision to red-green colour blindness, which is more common in men, or to a dog's colour vision. So it's sort of a little bit like a bit of an olive green filter has been put over the world. She has 270 degrees of vision, but her vision on her peripheral vision is not good. It has limited acuity, so that it's not as clear as ours. So you'll see that she can see me here, but she has to turn her head to look at me. Okay, so she wants to focus on something, and that brings me to 2 kinds of ways they use their eyes. They can either use their eyes separately. We call that's monocular vision, when she's using her eyes separately. But when she turns and looks at something, that's binocular vision because she's using both her eyes together. Now, when she's using binocular vision, she's got quite a small visual field. It's quite narrow, like that wide. You'll see that they have to turn their heads to look. They have to turn their heads to focus because they can actually see without turning their heads. But when they're resting or when they're grazing, they're using their monocular vision, and that means their eyes are working separately, so that's when they've got 270 degrees of vision. Now, they've got a different setup in their eye to us because we have an area fovea in the back of our eye and our retina. It's like a round. And if you think about your vision, it is kind of round, like it's sort of almost a circle. But the horse has a visual streak, which means he has a thin strip of light sensitive cells at the back of his eye. And so I think the horse is like basically looking out a letterbox. That's how narrow it is. And usually with the kids I teach, I get them to cover put their hand here and look out through like a little slit. And and see how that goes. And that's pretty much what the horse's vision is like. And that's why when you see them when they get frightened, they lift their heads up and down like this. And dogs do it too, but I don't know what their vision is like. But and they do it too. But the horse is basically, when he gets a fright, you'll quite often, and for those of you that ride, you really hate that feeling that the horse gives you, the young horse generally, on a cold morning, when he goes like this, and you're like, oh, this is really bad. This is not going to end well. And that's because he's trying to get as much of the visual image into that thin strip of cells as he can. So he throws his head up and down to get the image in. Now, the other thing about the horse, did you come back here or is she too scary? You can come on, okay. Well, she's not going to, so we'll just point it this way. The other thing about the horse is the horse can't see past or below the line of his nose. So he can't see what he's eating. And that's why he has those whiskers. And they're not actually whiskers, they're called vibrissae. And vibrissae are very specialised hairs that sit inside a little blood sinus. And basically, if my finger is the hair, when the hair is bent, it touches the side of the blood sinus, and there's a nerve that goes all the way into the brain that tells the horse what he's feeling. And those whiskers are incredibly important to the horse because he can't see there. And he is a discriminatory grazer, which means that he doesn't just go and mow the grass nice and flat, as everybody that's got a horse's nose. They leave big clumps of grass that they don't want to eat because, you know, a bird might poo on it or a horse poo on it or whatever. So the paddocks end up looking lumpy and then you have to mow them. So he doesn't want to eat everything. So he picks out what he's going to eat, but he does it by touch. So that's why a lot of really good and well-informed welfare agencies and organisations, equestrian organisations now, so in Europe there's a lot of equestrian organisations that have banned the trimming of vibrissae. Pony Club Australia has now just really very recently banned the trimming of vibrissae in pony club competitions, and that's a massive step forward for welfare. Because not only does it help them navigate their environment, but it also like really limits their quality of life. I think if they can't see what they're eating, basically. I'll give it back. So we've got the vision, and the vision has the monocular and the binocular vision, and we've got the blind spots, and so you're aware of not to come up to the horse's blind spots. And we are looking now, understanding the body language. Now we're going to talk about the pain face. So another thing for your homework once you go home is tetrachromax, and then you're going to go and you're going to Google equine pain face. And so they've done some really cool studies on what a horse looks like when it's in pain, and it's a really useful thing for us to understand. And so, come back. Anyway, so some horses have them naturally anyway, but you can see on this horse, she has the triangular wrinkles above her eyes. Her eyes sort of come into peaks, and that's that's her normal face. But if those are to become more obvious, and it's the same with this one. Then you would see these wrinkles here get more obvious, and these horses are a little bit aroused because they're in a very small space for us, and they wouldn't normally be confined like this. And this is a bit unnatural for them, so you would expect them to be ever so slight, their arousal levels to be higher than normal. So, and that also is, that sometimes translates to pain when they come forward. Okay, so in the pain face, we get a lateral dilation of the nostrils, so the nostril comes out this way. We get a flattening off of the chin, so that this chin area gets tighter. And we get the most interesting and the most obvious when you see it is these ears. The ears become wider apart at their base, so that across the top of the head gets longer, essentially. So you'll see, and when you have a look at it online, once you sort of see it, you'll recognise it in horses. So that's what I would really like you to have a look at before I see you next week or the week after, whenever I see you, so that we can just talk about that in the cracks and things like that. So, what else, Dave, do I have to talk about?
Pretty good. Shall we move on to...
Should we get Fiona to get
Yes.
one? So, here's one we created earlier. So Fiona's going to go in. And we're always going to do this in pairs in this unit. So we're going to have someone on the gate. So it's easy. So I'll just hold it. Can I take her since she wants to actually come out? Yeah. So what if we get you to all stand behind the stocks that way? There's some big buses, these ones. Really good doing, don't they? I guess that's why they stayed so now, there's a horse with a roller. Okay? I'm just saying it's good. Now just chicken, don't take any of her mates out. When she comes. So now, should we want to stand here first before we go into the stocks?
Yeah, I just want to explain again how you put the halter on.
Oh, okay. So as this is as much for Dave's amazing video, many of you would be used to probably automatically walking up to a horse and catching it. And you probably find, as Portland said, you probably find yourself walking up and giving the horse a bit of a scratch rather than just coming at them with the head collar. And the other thing that is probably standard for most horses is that we work on the left-hand side, so the knee side. So most of the time it's going to be safer, the horse is going to be used to it if you approach him on the left-hand side. So as Paul said, you give it a bit of a scratch. Then you're going to have a head collar that's attached to a lead rope. And you might want to pop that over their neck so that you've got some control, so that you're not just attacking them with the head collar. So I won't take this head collar back off and put it back on again, but and it's not a silly thing because if you haven't, it's not a silly thing to not know how to put a head collar on if you've never done it before. How can you do it if you haven't done it before? But get yourselves familiar with it, that you've obviously got a nose piece, and this is always done up, so it's always connected, and this piece here was undone when I came to the horse. So I'm going to pop its nose into the head collar, and then I'm going to put my strap up over behind its ears, and I'm going to do it my buckle nice and securely. So it's not silly to not be able to do it, and if you haven't handled horses, today is your opportunity to go in and do that with some help from us and also the other experienced group members. So that's probably a nice, safe way to do that. And Portland's probably going to talk a little bit about where I might stand if I'm holding the horse. Is that what you're about to go on to?
Okay, so you'll spend a lot of time in this unit holding horses for other people to handle, to leave, to do all that sort of stuff. When you are holding a horse for someone, you must always be on the same side as the person that's handling the horse. So, for instance, in one of the practice that we do, we want to have a look at the brands. And on these standard brands, they're quite complicated. They take a bit of reading. So Fiona is now going to juggle herself because the brand is on the other side. She's going to get herself on that side. Okay, so then I can have a look. So if you stand on that side for now. So this is how not to do it. You can pretend, pretend you're on the phone. So this is Fiona and then me, vulnerable and looking at the brand. And what happens if she gets a fright? Because Fiona's anchoring her, which way is she going to go? She'll swing and run me over, won't she? So that's why Fiona is always going to be looking at me, looking at her, being mindful and concentrating on the job at hand. So, for instance, let's say I wanted to pick up the foot. Do we do that now?
Yeah,
or do we
sure.
do that separately?
No, do that now.
I might spin sideways so that
Yep.
you don't just see my butt.
Okay. So, it's a little bit like when you want to, so we'll just go some a little bit basic stuff first. So Fiona's always going to hold the lead rope with two hands. One about between sort of 10 and 30 centimetres away from the catch on this side closest to the head, and the rest of it she's wrapped. She hasn't done that. So come and see me afterwards if you want to know what happens when ropes get caught around your limbs or your fingers. So I can show you. So Fiona's not putting her fingers in loops like that. She's not going to wrap the rope around her neck because she doesn't want to die. She's not going to throw...
Actually, that's not and it's, you sort of say that flippantly, but it's actually kind of tempting. You often see people doing that. If you're standing there holding the rope, some people are just kind of standing there like this, just kind of swinging the rope. So it's actually not a silly thing, and you do see some nice rope burns because you're just kind of hanging out.
So you just have to remember at any point in time, this horse, which weighs about 470, what do you know, 470?
Yeah, it'd be pushing
About
500.
Yeah, close to 500 kilograms, could run and gallop away at 60 kilometres an hour with her very hard teeth and head. Their heads are really hard. And if you're in the way, she's going over top of you. So those are things we have to kind of be mindful of. So Fiona's always going to be managing the horse. And what we want to do is just be really clear with the horse what is the expected behaviour. And so Fiona's just going to manage her such that if she takes a step forward, Fiona's just going to quietly correct her by making her take a step back. If she takes a step backwards, Fiona's going to correct her by making her take a step forward. If she goes sideways, Fiona's just going to correct her with a backward step. Okay, so we're just going to make sure she stays pretty still. Even if you've never handled a horse before, you can very quickly teach it just to stand still. So we're going to pick up a foot here. So it's a little bit like, you've got to buy her a drink before you go groping her, in a way. So you want to just make sure she knows you're there. Fiona's on the same side as me. You're going to stroke her. And then you're going to quietly run your hand all the way down her leg. Oh, look at that. And when you pick up the foot, you're going to just cradle it in your hand. Now remember what I said before. It doesn't work this way. So don't try and pull it out in front, okay? But always facing backwards, stroking her, keep your body language calm. I don't think that they read body language as an analogue of horse behaviour. We're going to talk about that in the lectures pretty soon. But it certainly does become a classically conditioned signal that the training is consistent. So again, you're going to run your hand down her leg, and when you pinch her at the back here, quietly lift it up the way it would bend naturally. Okay, don't try and bend it. And with these older girls too, a lot of these horses have got a bit of age on them. Don't bend the legs up too far. Okay, just leave it here. You don't have to bend it up like up to here, because that's going to hurt. You've all got young joints. Those of us with old joints, old horse riders' joints, know that we don't like to bend and then straighten them off. So do be nice to the horse. Okay, so we're going to go back to Sure.
I was just going to add one more thing. And these horses are quite good at knowing what you're going to do. So obviously this girl was happy to pick up her leg because she knows that's what everyone comes down here to learn. But the other thing they're quite clever at too is getting away with things if they can. So it's also important not only to be on the same side, but also to make sure that you're always out of that front reaching area, because one, it's a safe thing to do, and in particular these horses are quite good at going, I don't really want to pick up my foot, and they'll give you a nice big forward placement or a paw. So it's really important to be out of that. So I'm not going to stand on the same side but in the firing line, because it happens reasonably frequently, particularly in these mares, that they will do a little paw. So that's something to be mindful of.
Okay. Same thing with the back leg. It's a little bit like if you were going to punch someone, you would like them to be at the optimal distance. You know, if you want to punch a punching bag, you don't stand up this close, okay, because you can't hit it very hard, it's not very satisfying. You want to hit it at full range. Same with the horse. If you're going to get kicked by the horse, you want to be, and I know this sounds a bit counterintuitive to those of you that aren't horsey, you want to be as close into that horse as you most possibly can. Because if you get to the full range of his leg, when the power is at its maximum, it's going to hurt a little bit more. It's still going to hurt if you get kicked up close. So we're just going to make sure that we're nice to the horse, remember? So again, you come down and cup the leg here. Okay, you're staying in close. Like my hip is actually touching her there. Okay, then step away. Okay, don't, one of the first things she's going to do if she gets a fright, or even if one of those horses lunges at the fence, is she might kick out. And if I'm just chatting away to you, and I'm standing here, or here, this is about as, you know, or like here, that'd be pretty average, that'd be quite big. Okay? Again, I'll show that one again, the back clip. Do you want to just step her forward? So just make it a little bit easier for them. You want a nice base of support when they're standing. Don't ask them to stand if they pick up their foot if they're standing crooked. So again, we walk down the horse's body, keeping our hand on the horse, keeping your hip right up next to the horse. Run your foot down, hand down, and then with your other foot cupping that foot like hand cupping it like that. And then stepping back. That's picking up feet. And we might make her step back. So Fiona's going to make her step back. That's always a really useful thing to be able to do. She's just going to use pressure on the noseband of the halter, pressure, and as soon as she steps back, she releases the pressure. Okay? We're going to do a whole prac on this, but just for today, for those of you that haven't handled a horse before, that's really important. And then this cue for coming forward is that she's just going to apply a little pressure, and then as she comes forward, she releases. We're going to all get to have a play at doing quick release knots, but today we might put her in the stocks. Yeah. Okay, so these are where we're going to handle our horses for our pracs. You're going to, yours working in pairs. We always have both ends open.
So I'm going to come in through the back there.
So Fiona goes first the front one, once Fiona's out, obviously. And then they're back. And then she's in. And then you're going to, generally speaking, once the horse is in the stocks, you can come now a bit closer, guys. When the horse is in the stocks, we generally clip them up with the leg rope that's here to the side of the halter.
Some
And
of
usually
these,
up
yeah, I was
high.
going to say some of
Some of
these.
them are very short, so you clip them up high. This one doesn't actually. But we're going to do some knot tying in a minute, aren't we? And yeah, then to get her out, you simply Fiona's ready. Now, some of these horses have a few little tricks up their sleeve, and we certainly had one a few years ago that we used to run out of the stock. So you want to be really mindful that when you open the front gate, that horse doesn't just fold out. Okay, because they don't like being in here. This is where they get played with, and they don't like that. So we're going to open the stocks. Fiona's standing to the side so that she doesn't get run over, and then she's just going to lead her out quietly. Okay. We've done feet. We've done that. What about we let go? Does this one go? And
Yep.
then we can do into our breakout groups?
Yep, good.
Awesome. Okay, so Fiona's going to let her go. I'm going to man the gate. And what you'll see is that Fiona is not just going to like slap her on the arse as she walks out the gate, because that would probably get her kicked. She's going to walk her out, turn her to face the gate, and then just very quickly and efficiently release the lead rope and walk away. All right.
Portland, which way should you open and close the gates?
Well, Dave, I like to use the gate. Okay, Dave, we wouldn't try and put the horse away while this was going on, because obviously this horse is very distressed and bad things are going to happen here. So we're just going to wait till that kind of calms down, because this horse could get a terrible fright and get scared and run over the top of Fiona, and she wouldn't do that. Well, Dave, in this instance, I'm actually going to open the gate this way. I think it depends where the other horses are. So we could open it this way to move that other horse out the way. But we could. It's an emotional horse part. You're going to go go that way now.
Right.
I think I'll do it over this way.
Someone's going to catch that one because she really wants to be caught. She wants to do the track. So you can see Fiona's now let the horse go and now she just walks out. Are there any questions? Dave?
Is there anything, Fiona, that you were mindful of when you're releasing the horse like that?
The other horses that were, whether there are other horses around, see whether my horse was going to be anxious. I wasn't worried because I was over there. Portland was over here with the other two. But you could see them before that if someone else was in close proximity, she'd probably put her ears back and want to have a bit of a go or spin around and walk away. So I felt pretty comfortable because I was hanging out by myself. So,
And then we'll do the quick release knots.
yeah. Do you want to? Do you want to demonstrate how you want us to do it? Because you're
Yes.
going to be in task with them the most.
Yeah. So, we need something to tie to. So, if you're going to do a quick release knot, we're going to do them the same way. If you can do them a different way, that's okay, but I don't want you to do the way where you put the rope through the thing that you tie. I want you to put the loop of rope through. Loop through, okay, turn it. You've now got the excess on the outside. Put the excess through and pull tight. It holds this way, but it comes loose. If you do the one where you put the rope through and then tie the knot, when you pull the rope, you've still got the rope through there. So we'll do that in your groups, and it's not in an exam, but it's useful if you can do it. So through, twist, pull. And that's
There are various versions as well, so if you've
Yeah.
got your own, that's fine.
That's fine, as long as when you pull the thing, it comes loose completely from it. I don't want the end of the rope still through there. All right, has anybody got any questions? Okay, can you